During the past few weeks, Daniel Ricciardo has been making headlines mostly for all the wrong reasons. There is a gap between him and his teammate Lando Norris. Daniel is not too positive about McLaren CEO Zak Brown, who hasn't been too supportive of Lando Norris this year. Check out the video till the end to find out what all the fuss is about. There has been a lot of struggle for Daniel Ricciardo this season, with pace consistently and overall results. And it's not helped by the fact that his teammate Lando has outperformed him. There are 48 points for Lando and 11 for Daniel at the moment. So far this season, Lando has accounted for 82% of McLaren's points. When it comes to qualifying pace, Lando is usually 6/10 of a second faster. Taking a closer look at what's going on here, it becomes clear that Ricciardo's driving style needs to be understood. Why he was so quick at Red Bull but not at McLaren is because it would explain his ability to be quicker at Red Bull. Taking a look at the video, let's find out how McLaren can help Daniel Ricciardo and how Lando Norris has spoken to his teammate about his struggles. Let's see what Daniel Ricciardo's team principal and other drivers think about him, as reported by Racing News 365. Daniel's performance gap from teammate Lando Norris was explained by McLaren team principal Andrea Seidel. Daniel himself admits he still doesn't feel 100% about the car, especially when it comes to pushing it to the absolute limit. Aside from Andrea, Lando Norris was also a very powerful competitor in qualifying. When he considered both things together, he concluded that the disparity that they sometimes experience is evident. Also, Seidel clarified why Daniel was so far behind schedule. When we got back to Barcelona, we discovered an issue with the car, which gave us an important explanation, followed by him speaking about what they could do for Daniel. To find these last percentages, we must work hard together with Daniel with a commitment on both sides. The results Daniel has had over the years have been excellent, including a podium at Monza and even a win. But when compared directly to their teammate who is using the same tools, we are looking at one of the drivers with the worst records. In reality, it's the gap between Ricciardo and Lando that's interesting. To understand Ricciardo's driving style, we must look at where Red Bull team was aerodynamically superior and could produce more raw downforce than any other team. But the Renault engine itself wasn't so great. So they were slow in the straights, but faster in the corners. Which was it about Ricciardo's car that made him so great? Would it have been a good fit for his style? The only time he is overtaken is when he's on the last of the late breakers. The brakes were drawn earlier for Daniel on regular laps compared to most drivers. This allowed Daniel to turn in very fiercely and maintain a high minimum speed as he maintained a more level speed. The smoother braking phase kept the car flatter, allowing for good aerodynamics throughout the corner with the right car. Blake from Brake Formula 1 was a performance engineer at Red Bull at the time and says Daniel would set the car to be extremely stable on entry. Unlike Max Verstappen, Daniel didn't care about having the car move on entry. His style relies on a car with excellent front wheel grip because Daniel isn't hard on the brakes through corners. Fast forward to when Daniel joins McLaren, and while he was driven two very different cars, as far as the 2021 car and the 2022 car are concerned, Daniel has encountered similar problems with both models. In almost every way, Daniel seems to be unable to turn and rotate the car. His performance would then be determined by his apex and how he wanted to exit a corner. In contrast to earlier Red Bulls, the 2021 McLaren did not rotate well on corners, which suggests that its front axle might be slightly weaker and its rear axle may be more stable. It appears that the McLaren has a really strong rear end, which is good for braking, unlike Red Bulls that tend to have a more loose rear axle. However, this can result in its understeering slightly. This has caused an issue for Daniel over the past 2 years, and according to his interviews, the primary issue is understeering. In a Red Bull, Daniel can easily roll the car into a corner without putting a lot of brake pressure on the car due to its good front end grip. In addition to allowing the driver to run out of the road on the exit, it also allowed more weight to be placed over the car's rear for a better exit. Some drivers have been able to adapt this, while others have not. Daniel clearly had days and circuits where it worked, but overall it appears that the way the front axle works is not suited to him. Daniel's driving style and the way he likes to rotate the vehicle, especially when he's executing this kind of classic overtaking manoeuvre where he just straightens to the apex and then rotates it from there. That is a good thing, since he is already ahead of his competitor. There are different styles of overtaking. You aren't optimising for the fastest corner speed to a corner or the best run out of a corner. Lando's style is a little different from yours, since you're only trying to get ahead of your opponent and block the ideal line. It's different. But what is it that Lando is doing? The car with a hint of understeer can be driven by pulling the brakes late and deep into the corner if it is less stable on the brakes and with a little bit more understeer. Throughout the corner, this puts a lot of stress on the front tyres, while removing grip from the rear, allowing the driver to pivot the car on the front axle, creating a good exit. As a general rule, cars that have a hint of understeer are usually much more stable on the power, so the driver gains time on the exit. Look back at Lando's onboards from the last 2 years, and he seems to set his car up with a hint of understeer. As he exits the corner, he is able to accelerate more rapidly, which appears to be the deciding factor. With their personalities, Lando and Daniel are an intriguing partnership while still attracting fans. During a recent interview with the media, Lando and Norris admitted that he took some time to adjust to his new position in the garage. The driver acknowledged that he was struggling with his driving style at the beginning of the season more than Daniel was initially struggling with. Some of his feelings did not translate, he added. His partner and how they drive their cars are also slightly different. He says he prefers a car that has a lot more stability and push force on its front, and a car that has a little bit more understeer and stability. According to Lando Norris, McLaren cars this year are a bit different than last year's. The car is difficult to drive, according to Norris. Even Carlos said it over the past few years. I believe our characteristics are similar to his. As they are quite unique, you need to adapt some of the different driving styles that you learned growing up. It's particularly different this year because we've introduced some new characteristics and have removed some from last year. Adapting to this has meant changing my driving style as well as changing my driving style. I know McLaren's car inside out, and that's not just because I've been with the company for 4 years. If we talk about Daniel, he does not seem to have the confidence in it, even though it makes him feel better with the car moving around. In Monaco qualifying, you can see Daniel is much less confident on the brakes, and you can see this as he approaches the critical braking zone. The brakes are being lifted by Daniel where Lando's are not. Daniel is lifting them. You could argue that Monaco is pretty typical in terms of a Formula 1 track, so go and take a look at some typical Formula 1 track at Barcelona if you aren't convinced. However, there is probably some road progression here because it isn't nearly a second's worth, so Daniel isn't confident in that car. We'll see if he can make the changes he needs to adapt to achieve some more success this season. But that's all for today's video. Subscribe to our channel to catch up with all the hot and trendy news from Formula 1 first to you. We appreciate your support of our channel, and if you like this video, stay tuned for the next video.